UW360 is proudly supported by BECU, a not-for-profit member-owned credit union. Pacific Office Automation, copy, print, workflow, and IT. Problem solved.
Hi everyone, I'm Carolyn Douglas. Welcome to UW360. We're here at the Deloitte Commons at Packard Hall, part of the UW's Foster School of Business. A little later in the show, we'll join a group of business students as they test drive a new leadership game. We'll also introduce you to softball standout Caitlin Inglesby, see how South Asian migration helped shape the Pacific Northwest, and visit a house of fog that could have a global impact. First up, though, we head behind the scenes to radio station KEXP, where the music matters.
Part of what we're doing here is live music. As always, 5 live sessions today. This is the morning show on Listener Powered KEXP. I'm John Richards. Great to be here today. Thank you for tuning in. And I start a lot of people's day, and that's a great responsibility. From a 4 a.m. wake up, to making sure DJs are on the air throughout the day, to making sure I'm never missing any music. Correspondence with listeners is constant.
Talking to KEXP DJ John Richards, it's easy to get the impression he hasn't taken a day off since he joined the station 15 years ago.
I started at KEXP when we were KCMU, and we were on the UW campus in the CMU building.
Back then, the station was broadcasting 400 watts of listener-powered radio, a huge boost from their early days when, in 1972, KCMU debuted with a mere 10 watts of power. 40 years later, now with 4,000 watts under their hood, they are considered one of the most influential independent radio stations in the world, with their license held by the University of Washington.
So if you break down our mission, which is a very short one, to enrich people's lives by championing music and discovery, to enrich people's lives is really the core of it. I would say there's a bit of a recipe, which is find really amazing DJs, people who love music, who really know music, but they also have that other dimension, which is they can't help but share music.
So we're able to know and identify great bands, great songs, get those on the air early and often, from Macklemore being played here for the first time to going #1 in the country, to the Lumineers being the first played on the morning show, one of the top albums of the year.
I really love bands and artists that can take something and own it. And I also really love just hearing something different, experimental, weird.
Your heart beats for another day. I still believe you love.
At KEXP, innovation is the key to success. They weren't the first to broadcast online, to have an app, to put videos on YouTube, but they believe they do these things better than anyone else.
Because there's some emotion behind it, some humanity behind it, and I think that's what other people miss. When the videos have a really raw, live feel.
The most dramatic growth in the KEXP story is in dollars, more than $600,000 raised in their spring fund drive alone. The majority of that from listeners, the rest from underwriters and major gifts.
We have no demographic. We have the kid who just came in and who's 1. We have the adult who came in at 80 and dropped off their donation for the station because they love it.
KEXP went through a major transformation in 2002 thanks to a $3 million 3-year gift from former Microsoft billionaire Paul Allen.
And I don't think we'd be able to speak to all the different ways we're able to serve folks unless we could be pointing to Paul Allen's support.
The ability to program, the freedom to program the way we do, and touch people's lives like we're able to do at KEXP, that motivates me constantly.
It's about loving music and wanting to advance a mission of a place that, you know, is all about discovery.
You can catch more of KEXP on UW-TV. Tune in for sound sessions featuring KEXP Live on Friday and Saturday nights. You can check our website, uwtv.org/UW360 for the air times. Up next, students get a lesson in leadership through gaming as UW360 continues. Welcome back, everyone. In the not too distant future, playing online games may be a routine part of job interviews, medical tests, professional training, and education. The UW's Foster School has created a game that mimics what it's like to run a business, with occasional sidetracks by turmoil.
Six, okay. Anybody born after 1971 just knows. They understand. They've been exposed to numbers and they've been exposed to gamified systems their entire life. Have fun with that.
So the Foster School's Center for Leadership and Strategic Thinking is leading the way in developing games for teaching and testing. This board game, Wheels Up, is a prototype that will be turned into an online game to teach students what it's like to lead a business. In this case, an airline.
Oftentimes organizations will pick very challenging, complex, new directions to pursue. And on paper it sounds great, in discussions it sounds great, but until you test it, until you try it, you don't know if it's going to work.
Wheels Up was developed using real business dilemmas, many of them contributed by managers at Alaska Airlines.
A group of passengers watch from the plane as the ramp workers carelessly drop passenger bags from a truck. When passengers observe this, they lose trust. You need to deal with this. What's your recommendation going to be?
Each choice players make either helps or hinders them from landing airplanes, expanding their business network, and earning points. The person with the most points at the end wins. But just like in real life, a well-thought-out business plan can be disrupted by an unexpected event. So, the game has an annoying ringleader named Turmoil.
Automatic turmoil. Employees are arriving at meetings completely unprepared. Fuel prices double, the stock market plunges, there's all of these disruptions that happen that are just part of the real world. So we wanted this turmoil player to capture all of those different realities. You can use your resources to remove turmoil.
I want to use his resources to remove turmoil. He's got the card. When do we get to use this?
He can't play it.
Wheels Up also mimics the business world by giving players the option of making deals or forming partnerships with other players. Alliances that can be boom or bust, no guarantees. When faced with challenges, players must decide if they want to institute a quick fix or make a more complicated business change to earn more points.
3-0. Get that transformational 8 points.
It's taken 2 years to get the Wheels Up board game rolling, and students have been involved every step of the way.
I produced all of the graphics for everything in the game, so any logos that you see, any type those set for any of it, the box design. And the colors, we kind of look retro, kind of old Pan Am style look to it.
The online version of Wheels Up is expected to be ready for classroom use before the year is out. And the Foster School believes it is a much better way to present the very traditional business school learning model known as a case study.
They're an absolute staple of every single business school. But when you look at case studies, not much has changed over 100 years. You can gamify a case study and make it interactive and make it live, that when you're answering questions, it's actually based upon stock prices today. It's based upon oil prices today.
Not only is Wheels Up a way to learn, it may become a way to earn. It's believed the games developed at the Foster School can be sold to other schools and businesses.
What we're doing is building a model that we can take into any organization. We've gathered a lot of information and data from organizations in healthcare. We've also looked into the area of startups in the biomed area. We've also looked at larger commercial enterprises. Games have a lot of the same characteristics as business does, so we can model business in a game.
You filled up your point tracker first, so you win.
The Center for Leadership next plans to create a game about the healthcare industry. Speaking of games, we now turn to the game of softball, and one of UW's star athletes. Caitlin Inglesby isn't just talented, she is tough. She was determined to stay in the game, even after a line drive shattered almost all the bones in her face.
I don't really know when it clicked for me, but
It's just over the course, I would say from like 12 to 15, I realized that like I had the potential to play in college, and if that was something I wanted to do, it was there for me. I wanted to be either a pitcher or a catcher, someone who is in full control, controls the game, like all the way through. So I think at that time I realized I wanted to be a pitcher, and ever since I started pitching, I've loved it. Playing college softball is an amazing accomplishment for anybody, and getting to play at Washington, it was just like overwhelming excitement. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is real. Like, this isn't a dream. I hardly spoke when I was little, and they had no idea why, and just kind of thought it was just I was shy, wasn't really comfortable around the people I was with. You know, eventually started doing hearing tests and found that I had an 80% hearing loss. I really just remember getting my hearing aids when I was, in preschool, and my life really started then, because I really started talking. I started communicating because I didn't really understand how much I was missing in my life. I was a freshman in high school, 14 years old, and all of a sudden got very sick. Then it turned out that I actually had an autoimmune disease called Graves' disease, and that's like hyperthyroidism. Basically, my thyroid was shutting down my immune system. At that point, it was like, no, like I'm gonna beat this. I'm gonna be better. I'm gonna get healthy. Like I will do whatever it takes. Around my 16th birthday, I started feeling better, and I started like gaining weight, and everything came back so naturally to me.
Seeing her beside you, doing all the work, doing everything that you are doing when maybe she's not having a good day, maybe she forgot her medication, maybe she's feeling absolutely terrible inside, but she puts on a face where you can never tell what's going on.
It was my third day of practice as a Husky, and it was like the last inning of the game, and I had Hooch Fagali 2 strikes. I had her, and I threw her a changeup, and she hit it square, and it came right back at me. I saw the ball coming, and all I had time to do was like turn my head a quarter of an inch.
It happened so fast, nobody could even blink.
And it just hit me smack, like right here.
Everybody stopped what they were doing and ran over to the field.
And I just saw blood like everywhere, and I was just like, what just happened?
We honestly didn't even know if she was alive, to be honest. I'd never seen anything like that.
You don't even have 47 bones in your face, but I fractured them 47 times. Luckily, they were all broken so bad that they just held. I overcame the hearing loss and the Graves. It's like, this is just another obstacle that's just thrown my way, and now I gotta get over it and move forward.
She is really passionate in everything that she's about, and I think that she is gonna take it upon herself to make other people's lives easier based on what she's gone through.
It doesn't matter what obstacles are thrown in your face, like you can overcome them, and I think that's a huge reason of why I'm here, is that, doctors looking at me in the eye and saying like, Kaylin, I don't know if you will ever be able to play softball again. Like, I don't know if you will ever be able to lace up your cleats and throw a ball. Like, we just don't know. And just hearing them say that, I'm like, no. Like, that's not an option. I'm sorry. Like, you don't know me. Like, you're not going to keep me off the softball field.
You can find more information about Caitlin and the rest of the UW softball team on our website. Don't go away. We'll be right back with a story about another kind of journey as UW 360 continues. Welcome back to UW 360. Nearly 10 years ago, a small gift from a UW librarian launched a remarkable oral history project about the impact made by immigrants from South Asia on the Pacific Northwest. It's all part of a recently released book called Roots and Reflections.
Everyone has a story to tell, and when those stories are collected, we see the pattern of a culture.
So I had the great honor of actually being able to meet almost the majority of our narrators, often in their homes.
As a University of Washington grad student, Amy Bott collected oral histories of South Asian immigrants to the Pacific Northwest. It was a project initially funded by UW librarian Irene Joshi, whose husband Raj came from India.
There's a wonderful story by Santosh Wahi about coming here in the 1970s and starting a language school for students, for children of immigrants. And originally there was no place where students could go and learn Indian languages, so she and a friend of hers would rent out a room at the Bellevue Library.
Those oral histories have been collected into a book. Roots and Reflections is co-authored by Amy Bott and Nalini Iyer and published by University Press. It's the story of immigrants from India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and Bangladesh who arrived here from the end of World War II through the 1980s. Deepa Banerjee, the South Asian Studies librarian at UW Libraries, was also deeply involved in the project. As an immigrant from India, she felt a strong connection.
I went through all those experiences of, feeling isolated in the beginning, trying to understand the culture of the new place, and, trying to integrate myself in the American society.
Prem Kumar, profiled in Roots and Reflections, came to the Northwest as a graduate student. He was studying language and literature, very different interests from other Indian students he met.
There were just about a dozen students there, all of them in sciences, technical, engineering fields, nobody in my area. So it was difficult for me to relate with them.
Prem and his wife returned to India after earning doctoral degrees, only to find that the Pacific Northwest was really where they belonged.
When we went back to India after 14 years, things had changed. We had been here for so long that the adjustment back to that culture had become more like a challenge. Once we came back, we decided that this is where we are going to make our home.
South Asian immigrants have had a big impact on the culture and economy of our region, something the authors wanted to highlight.
Here in the Pacific Northwest, we have the advantage of having large, very well-respected global corporations and companies. And South Asians from across the subcontinent have become very important in helping develop the kind of technology industry that is so pertinent to especially the Seattle area.
The oral histories, and now the book, have been added to the resources available in UW Libraries' South Asian Studies.
This collection is like a nationally important collection with over 600,000 volumes of materials, including monographs, serials, newspapers, maps, audio and video recordings.
For Prem Kumar, it's all very personal.
I had a very rich life here. And I'm doubly blessed that I had this opportunity to bring with me a very rich cultural history. At the same time, I also learned, adopted, assimilated with a culture which is rich in its own way. And I think people should keep that in mind. They are richer in bringing more things rather than just sticking with what they brought with them. So I'm just hoping that people learn from this type of project, which gives them a reason to learn more about themselves as well as the culture that they have adopted.
For more information about Roots and Reflections, you'll find a link on our website. Stay with us. We'll be right back with a story about making fog as UW360 continues. Welcome back, everyone. Cold, wet air is abundant in the Pacific Northwest, so it's hard to believe anyone would actually want to make more of it. But that's exactly what they're doing behind the UW Biology Department's greenhouse. They are making fog. And that man-made fog could have a huge impact on our world.
This is the Hoop House, a little white plastic hut on the University of Washington campus. Inside, it's a dripping mass of fog and full of very good intentions.
You ready?
We can scale anything up to per unit time and per unit area.
With a grant from the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, these researchers are studying the best way to turn fog into water.
The other net we had up before this net that had the 2 V's in it. So in 45 minutes we collected over 1.2 liters of water off of it.
Turning fog into water is low-tech and ecologically friendly. It just takes wind and something to collect the droplets, like tall trees or a man-made plastic net. The idea isn't new, but the UW team's goal is to make fog collection more effective. Professors Susan Bolton and Ben Spencer became interested in fog during one of their trips with the UW's Global Health Department. They're studying how to help a low-income community on the outskirts of Lima, Peru. Water is key. With just half an inch of rain a year, the area has few trees and very little other vegetation. And the neighborhood isn't connected to Lima's municipal water system.
Right now, they're running largely on water that comes from the Andes, from the glaciers that feed the rivers that run through the city that the city has relied on for years. Sooner or later, the glaciers are going to be gone because they're melting very quickly. The tropical glaciers are some of the ones that are melting the fastest in the world.
They're losing water supply, their population is growing, they don't have any local water resources available, except that the city is covered with fog for 8 months out of the year.
Lima's fog, combined with its location near the coast, is ideal for making water.
You really have to have a major body of water and the wind pushing the fog up into the hills. Moving fog is the key component to being able to harvest it. It has to be blowing through the fog collector in order for it to accumulate. It can't be stagnant.
Although it's not meant to be a substitute for water supplied by a city, water from fog could help improve life here. Collecting fog effectively is essential. At the UW, it's a multidisciplinary effort with team members from engineering, architecture, environmental and forest sciences, and landscape architecture.
So we're thinking about how the fog collection is subsequently stored, how it's then used to irrigate vegetation and used subsequently for household use. So we're using fog and the fog collectors to irrigate trees, which in turn can become fog collectors themselves, and then we can collect that drip from the trees in these public spaces for other uses.
We don't want to just invent a net or different net design. We're trying to develop a system, so we want to collect the water, store the water, distribute the water.
With an array of these fog collectors, you can actually begin to get a substantial amount of water.
So it's been a great example to me of sort of how if people just sort of talk to each other and start working together, we can really do some pretty cool stuff.
And that's it for this edition of UW360 at Packard Hall. You can catch this episode again on our website, uwtv.org/UW360, where you'll also find links to more information on everything we've covered today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with all news stories from the University of Washington.
Wardrobe for Carolyn Douglas is provided by C'est La Vie, located in downtown Edmonds and in Renton at The Landing.